From that evening on, she could not sleep. Dreams filled her nights, dreams of another life, another death. She saw herself running through a forest, flames behind her, voices shouting her name. She saw him, Dracula, reaching for her across the fire, his eyes full of agony. When she woke, her sheets were cold with sweat, and the sound of her own heartbeat echoed like footsteps in the dark. Every morning she grew weaker. Her reflection paled. Sometimes she forgot to eat. She could feel something pulling her toward him, as if her heart had become a compass that pointed only to the Count. Once, she tried to write a letter to her friend back in England, but when she dipped her pen into the ink, the words refused to come. The paper remained empty, as though the castle itself did not allow messages to leave. A week passed, or perhaps a month. Time no longer felt real. The clocks had stopped, and the sun rarely appeared. Elena wandered through the corridors, half awake, half dreaming. The paintings watched her, the air whispered her name. She began to notice small things, a shadow that lingered too long, a whisper when no one was there, a handprint on her window made from frost. And always she felt his presence, Dracula's unseen gaze, both protector and captor. One night, unable to bear the silence, she went to the library. The fire was dying, books covered the tables, and on one of them lay an open journal written in an old language. She turned the pages slowly. Inside were drawings of the same woman, the woman from the portrait. She heard footsteps. Dracula appeared behind her. "You should not wander alone," he said softly. "I could not sleep," she whispered. "This castle, it feels alive." He nodded. "It is. It remembers everything." He stood beside her, so close she could feel the coldness that surrounded him. "Does it frighten you, Elena?" She hesitated. "No, not the castle." "Then what does?" She looked up at him, her voice barely a breath. "You." He smiled, almost tenderly. "Good. You understand more than you think." A long silence followed. The firelight danced between them, warm and golden, yet she felt no warmth at all. Dracula reached out, slowly, as if afraid to touch her. His hand hovered near her face, then dropped to his side. "I have waited centuries for your return," he said, "and now that you are here, I am both blessed and cursed again." Elena's throat tightened. "If I am truly her, then tell me, how did she die?" His expression darkened. "By fire, because she loved me." The words struck her like a blow. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. He turned away. "Do not weep for what was, my dear one. It will only awaken what must sleep." But it was too late. She already felt it, something stirring deep within her, old and familiar. That night, when she looked into the mirror again, she no longer saw only herself. She saw two faces, hers and another's, blending into one. And in that instant, she understood that the Count's story was not a tale of the past. It was the beginning of her own.
The storm came without warning. It howled across the Carpathian mountains like a wounded beast, shaking the old castle until dust fell from the ceilings and the windows rattled in their frames. Rain struck the glass in furious waves, and thunder rolled through the halls like the voice of judgment itself. Elena stood by the tall window, her reflection trembling in the lightning flashes. She had planned to leave that evening, before the storm, before her courage broke again. But now, nature itself had locked her inside, with the man, or monster, she could neither flee from nor fully trust. Behind her, the fire burned low. The long shadows stretched like claws across the floor. And in those shadows, he appeared, Dracula. He seemed carved from darkness, tall, motionless, his pale face glowing faintly in the firelight. His eyes, those strange, ancient eyes, found her instantly. "You should not have stayed," he said quietly. His voice was soft, almost tender, but every word seemed to carry centuries of sorrow. "I couldn't leave," Elena whispered. "The storm." He smiled faintly. "There are storms inside this castle, far older than the one outside." For a moment, neither spoke. The thunder filled the silence between them, a drumbeat of fate. She could feel the pull of him, magnetic, terrifying, irresistible. She turned from the window, her heart trembling. "You've been avoiding me, since that night in the garden." "I have tried to protect you," he said, "but you do not understand what it costs me to see you, to hear your heart beating, so close, so alive." "Then tell me," she said, "tell me the truth." His expression changed. For the first time she saw fear in him, not of her, but of himself. "Elena," he murmured, "the truth is a blade that cuts both the liar and the listener." "Then let it cut," she said, stepping closer. "I would rather bleed than live in doubt." Something in her courage broke his restraint. He turned away, pacing before the fire, his cloak trailing like a shadow that had come alive. "You want to know what I am," he said, his voice rising with the storm. "I am thirst, I am hunger without end. I am love that destroys what it desires. I have walked through centuries watching the world change, but I remain the same, bound to a curse that feeds on life, on beauty, on warmth." Lightning flashed across his face, and for an instant she saw the faint shimmer of fangs behind his lips, the predator beneath the poet. Yet she did not step back. "You loved once," she said softly. "Did you not?" He looked at her then, and in his eyes she saw a loneliness deeper than any grave. "Yes," he said, "and I killed her, as I will kill you if I let myself love again." The words struck her like ice, yet something inside her refused to retreat. She had feared death all her life, but never had it looked so beautiful, so full of meaning. "Maybe love is stronger than your curse," she said. He shook his head. "You don't know what you're saying." But she did. Every heartbeat told her that her life had already changed. "You've lived in the dark too long," she whispered. "Let me share my light with you." He froze. "If I take it, I will take all of you." "Then take me." The storm screamed outside, wind howling through the towers. He reached for her hands, his touch cold as winter, trembling like a man standing at the edge of damnation. "Elena," he breathed, "you do not understand what you offer." "I do," she said. "I offer my blood, my love, my soul, if that's what it takes to free you." For a long moment he stood motionless, caught between desire and despair. Then, as if drawn by a force greater than will, he pulled her closer. His lips hovered near her neck, not yet a kiss, not yet a wound, and she could feel his breath, sharp and trembling. "I cannot," he whispered. "You can," she replied, "because I choose it." And then he kissed her. It was not the soft kiss of lovers in peace, but a storm breaking between them, fierce, desperate, consuming. Her heart beat wildly as his lips pressed against her skin, and she felt the faint sting of his teeth. A warmth spread through her, strange, burning, dizzying.
She did not pull away. He drank only a little, but it was enough to awaken every forbidden longing he had buried for centuries. He tore himself back, shaking, eyes wide with horror. "What have I done?" he cried. Elena's knees trembled. She touched her neck, feeling the 2 tiny marks, and then looked at him, not with fear, but with wonder. "You've shown me eternity," she said softly. Outside, the wind shifted. Beneath the thunder came another sound, the distant shouting of men. Torches flickered beyond the gates. Dracula's head snapped toward the window. "They're coming." "The villagers?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "They think fire can burn away their fear." He moved to the door, cloak swirling around him. The firelight danced over his pale face, over the blood that still glimmered on his lips. "You must hide," he said. "They will kill you too if they see you with me." "I won't hide," Elena said, stepping closer. "Not from them, not from you." He looked at her for a long time, the mortal who had dared to love the immortal. In that gaze was something like peace, something he had not known in 100 lifetimes. The shouting grew louder, closer. Wooden feet pounded on the outer stairs. A voice cried a prayer, another cursed. The air filled with the iron smell of smoke and the sharp tang of torches. Shadows moved beneath the tall windows, cutting the lightning's cold light into darker shapes. Dracula's hand found hers for a heartbeat, cool, reluctant, and terrible in its tenderness. "Whatever happens, remember this. You were not my victim. You were my salvation." A heavy thud came from below, as if the castle itself heard the mob's rage and answered with its old bones. The great oak door that had kept the mountain's silence for decades shook under the force of many fists. Someone screamed, half with fear and half with victory. Elena pressed her free hand over her heart. Beneath her palm a new warmth spread, like a tiny ember beneath ash. Lightning flashed, and in the white glare she saw men appear at the threshold, faces twisted with fear and resolve, torches raised high so that the flames licked the night like accusing tongues. Pitch and straw, ropes and iron bars were visible now. A crude banner of white cloth fluttered at the head of the crowd. They began to sing, not a song of joy, but of cleansing, a rough, rising chant filled with prayers and threats. The torches threw long, trembling columns of light through the open hall. A ram struck the great door with a final, shuddering crash. At that instant, with the storm screaming and the castle breathing like a beast about to be wounded, Elena and the Count faced the threshold together, one between the safety of shadow and the terrible brightness of human fury. The door gave. Men spilled inside, torches held high, voices raw and close. Their faces were lit from below by the flames, their eyes were small points of hard light. For a single suspended second, the world held its breath. Thunder, torchlight, the smell of smoke, the taste of iron on the air, and then the mob surged forward, driven by an old fear made sudden and furious. Elena reached for him. He drew her close, not to hide, but to hold, as if in that embrace he might still make the world obey a different law. Outside, their cries grew higher. The first torch was thrown. The first shout of triumph split the storm. And in the flash that followed, the castle's great hall was filled with men who had come to destroy the monster they feared. The torches fell like stars from angry hands, hitting the floor and spreading fire across the old carpets. The smell of smoke filled the air, sharp, dry, and merciless. Dracula stood tall before the crowd. His pale face looked almost calm, but his eyes burned with an old and endless sorrow. The flames danced in them like memories. "Leave this place," he said in a voice that echoed through the hall. "You do not understand what you fight." "Monster!" one man shouted. "Demon!" cried another.
They raised their crosses, their pitchforks, their trembling courage. Elena stepped between them. "Stop!" she cried. "He's not what you think." But her voice was drowned by the thunder and the screams. Someone pushed her aside and she fell to her knees. Dracula moved faster than wind. One heartbeat he was beside her, the next he was standing before the mob, his cloak spreading like the wings of night. The men froze. The sight of him, tall, unbroken, beautiful in his terror, made even hatred hesitate. Then the priest among them lifted his crucifix high. Dracula flinched. Smoke curled from his skin where the holy metal glowed, yet he did not retreat. Instead, he caught the priest's gaze and whispered, "You fight shadows, not sins." Another torch flew. The curtains caught fire. The heat grew fierce. "Elena!" he called. She stood again, coughing through the smoke. "Let me help you." "No," he said. "You must live." The mob advanced, circling him, shouting words of light and death, but before they could strike, Dracula moved. He did not fight with weapons, his power was silence. The wind around him rose suddenly, breaking windows, throwing the torches back. Flames bent toward the intruders, and many fell, screaming. Elena ran to him, her heart pounding. "They'll kill you!" He turned to her. His face was strange now, half man, half something older, greater, broken. "Love cannot save me," he said softly, "but it saved you." A beam cracked above them. Fire rained from the ceiling. He caught her in his arms and carried her toward the stone stairs leading out. Every step seemed to take centuries. Outside, dawn had begun to break, thin silver light creeping over the mountains. The mob chased behind them, their fury bright and blind. At the gates he stopped. "Go," he told her again. Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Come with me." He smiled, a sad human smile. "I cannot follow the sun." "Please," she whispered. He touched her cheek gently, his fingers cold but tender. "When they tell stories of monsters, remember that even monsters can love." The first ray of sunlight touched his sleeve. Smoke rose from the black fabric. He didn't move. "Go, Elena." She shook her head, sobbing. "I won't leave you." He leaned forward, pressed his forehead to hers, and whispered, "Then remember me." The light grew stronger, blinding white pouring over the valley. He stepped back, his outline flickering like a dying flame. "Elena," he said, his voice faint now, "love is the only thing that survives death." And with that he turned to face the sunrise. His body shimmered, broke apart into ash and light, and vanished into the wind. The mob fell silent. Their torches dropped one by one. The castle behind them burned like a golden wound against the morning sky. Elena sank to the ground, holding her heart, where a small mark now glowed faintly beneath her skin, warm and painful. The wind carried his voice once more, so soft it might have been a dream. "Do not mourn me, my love. The night will remember us." And as the sun rose higher, Elena Whitmore, the woman who had loved the immortal Count, walked away from the ruins, alive, but forever changed. Her shadows stretched long across the road, reaching back toward the mountains, toward the ashes of the man who had once been darkness itself, and yet had loved her more than life.
Years passed. Cities changed. Faces disappeared. And yet, some shadows never left. In London, under the soft, gray rain, Eleanor Whitmore walked the crowded streets like a ghost among the living. She worked as an art teacher now, quiet and graceful, but her students often said that her eyes looked like they were watching something far away, something no one else could see. Every night, she dreamed of a castle on fire, of wings made of smoke, of a man with eyes the color of forgotten time. And every morning, she woke with a pain in her chest, a faint scar over her heart that burned whenever the moon was full. She never spoke of him, not to anyone. The world would not understand. But sometimes, when the rain touched her face, she thought she could hear his voice in the wind, low, distant, tender. Love survives death. She would stop walking, close her eyes, and whisper back, "I remember." One evening, after class, she visited a new art exhibition in the city. It was called Visions of the Eternal. The paintings were filled with dreamlike figures, angels, lovers, ghosts. She wandered through the gallery in silence, her footsteps echoing softly against the marble floor. And then she saw it. At the end of the room, under dim, golden light, hung a portrait. Her heart stopped. It was him, Count Dracula, or what the artist believed he looked like, painted in haunting detail, the dark eyes, the proud face, the sorrow that no brush could truly capture. The title written beneath it said only, "The Cursed Heart." Elena felt dizzy. The air seemed colder around her. A voice spoke behind her, calm, deep, familiar. Strange, isn't it? How art can remember what time forgets. She turned slowly. A man stood there, tall, dressed in black. His hair was dark, his skin pale, but it was his eyes that caught her breath. They were the same eyes she had seen in dreams, the same gaze that had once burned through centuries. She couldn't speak. He smiled faintly. "Forgive me, my name is Alaric Vale." He extended his hand. When she touched it, a chill ran through her veins, not of fear, but recognition. Her voice trembled. "Do we know each other?" He looked at her for a long moment. In another life, perhaps. They stood in silence, surrounded by the soft murmur of the gallery and the endless beating of rain against the windows. Elena tried to look away, but she couldn't. There was something impossible in his presence, something both human and eternal. She said quietly, "You painted this." He nodded. "I dreamed it. A memory, I think, of someone I once loved, someone who burned with the sunrise." Her throat tightened. "And yet you painted him. You remembered." His expression softened. "Some memories are stronger than death." The lights flickered for a second. The rain outside turned heavier. Elena felt a pulse beneath her skin, right where the scar lay. It burned now, glowing faintly through the fabric of her dress. She gasped and touched her chest. Alaric's eyes followed her hand. His face changed. Recognition, disbelief, wonder. "Elena," he breathed. Her heart stopped. "You know my name?" He stepped closer. "I have always known your name." The world around them seemed to disappear. The voices of people faded, the sound of rain softened, and only the two of them remained, souls meeting again after lifetimes apart. He reached out slowly, as if afraid she might vanish. He said, "You found me." Tears filled her eyes. She whispered, smiling through them, "No, love found us." He smiled, that same sad, beautiful smile she had last seen in the burning dawn. The candles around the room trembled, the light flickered like fire, and for a heartbeat she saw it. The castle walls, the storm, the endless night, and the man who had once turned to dust in her arms. Then the vision faded. Alaric took her hand and pressed it against his heart. It was beating, slow, steady, alive. "Elena," he said softly, The night gave me back what the sun once took." She looked up at him, and the centuries between them vanished. Outside, the storm broke open, thunder rolling across the sky. People hurried toward the exits, but Elena and Alaric didn't move. They stood before the painting, before his face, knowing that fate had completed its circle. When the lights flickered again, they were gone. Only the portrait remained, and beneath it a small line of new text had appeared, as if written by unseen hands. "Love never dies, it only waits." And do you believe that love never dies? Write in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories.